Anybody know what conflict means? Yes, sir. A problem. Just imagine just doing this. It's a problem. It's a conflict. Conflicts come from many, many reasons. Whether it's a misunderstanding, a lie, or just plain out mean. Okay. So anyways, long story short, the Iraqis didn't leave. The rest of the world, the rest of the bigger countries, South Korea, the United Nations countries, asked Iraq to leave, and they said, no, we won't. So then what do you think was the next ultimatum that they gave Iraq? They said, if you don't leave, we will force you to leave. Well, how do you force another country to do something it doesn't want to do? Well, you go in and you show a presence, and hopefully it doesn't lead to war, but unfortunately it did. Well, I joined the United States Marine Corps, and 6 months later, on Christmas Day, we got sent to Saudi Arabia, which is the country right next to Kuwait. That's where all the United Nations troops were forming to go into Kuwait City to help the Iraqis change their mind and belief. On Christmas Day, I got some bullets and a uniform. That's what I got for Christmas. Okay? So, real bullets. Okay? So anyways, long story short, this was the conflict. Now, I don't want to focus too much on my, hold on with the questions, I'll give you some question time here. I don't want to focus too much of my time on what we did, but the United Nations countries did have to go into Kuwait and physically move the Iraqis, and it was a short war. Thankfully, it was only a short 2 or 3 week event. Right now, that's not the case with the war with Iraq. We're going on, what, 7 or 8 years? Okay? Hold on a second with the question. I'll give question times in a minute, okay? But I want to focus on the conflict aspect. There was 2 countries that didn't see eye to eye. Now just imagine you're on the playground and your friend or your classmate does something to you and you don't like it. Boom. What happens? There's a what? There's a conflict. And you have several choices. You could move on and not let it bother you. You could tell that person, hey, you did this to me, do you mind apologizing? And they can apologize. Okay? You could talk with your teachers and work out the conflict. Or you could duke it out. Get up in their face and say, hey, you bumped me. And what? What are you going to do? And you start pushing. By the time you know you're on the ground, and you're spitting, and you're cussing, and you're crying, and you're hitting. Okay? So, unfortunately, people, we have conflicts. Students have conflicts. You have conflicts with your teachers. Teachers have conflicts with each other. I'm sure Mr. Chan and Mr. Schumacher, as nice as they are, may have had a conflict one day. But have you ever seen them on the ground cussing and spitting? That only happens after y'all go home. Okay?
At 3:30.
Yeah. But unfortunately, sometimes countries and governments don't look at other people and say, hey, man, you know what? It's okay. These conflicts leads to war. Like, you guys are sitting, we're all sitting right now in Korea. Korea used to be one country. Because of a conflict, they divided it. We're still divided, and the country's still at a state of war. So what I think your teachers are trying to teach you is we have conflicts, but what are our choices of how to look at those conflicts? What are our choices of how to solve those conflicts? Okay? Have any of you ever been in a conflict? How many of you got iPads for Christmas? How many of you wanted iPads for Christmas? but only 2 of you got them, so therefore you're in conflict with your parents. I wanted an iPad. Where's my iPad? Okay? You had 2 choices. You can fall on the ground and kick and scream and spit, or you can say, hey, you know what, maybe next year or I'll get a job and buy my own. That'd take forever, huh? There's always a way out of conflicts. And unfortunately, the country that I come from, the United States, didn't take the choice that I would have made. We are now in 2 wars. We're in Iraq fighting terrorism, and we're in Afghanistan fighting terrorism. Okay? I'll tell you right now, personally, I don't agree with it, but I don't want to get into the political aspect because that's not really what we're here about. Okay? So on that day, we got there, And it was matter. Does anybody know what? Have you all studied climates? What is a climate? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's like a place. It's a different climate. It's a different climate from where I live.
Yeah, another. Yes, sir. It's like weather. It's the weather that has to do with the region that you're in. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Temperatures, degrees, Fahrenheit, Celsius. Anybody know what kind of climate it is in the desert? Stuffy and very hot. How many of you would agree with him? Well, let me tell you, the desert that I was in, we were there Christmas Day, so it was winter on that part of the world. It was very cold. I got to the desert thinking, man, we're going to wear shorts and T-shirts and play volleyball. We were shivering. We had to need jackets, and we didn't have enough we didn't have enough jackets because everybody thought we're going to the desert. It's going to be hot. Okay? But this desert at night was very cold. It even snowed one night. Okay? So you'll learn more about that when you get into middle school. I don't know if you guys study climate and biomes and stuff. Some deserts get really cold. So not only was I far away from my home for the first time in my life, I was in a different country. I was in an area where people didn't like me. And guess what they wanted to do to me? They were in conflict, and yes, I was seen as the enemy. Yes, sir.
So if it's really snow and it got hot again, you think there'll be water for that animals that the animals to drink?
Exactly, because the water, but it had to be a place for the water to set. If it was in the sand, it would just soak in. Okay, but I understand what you're saying. So we get to the desert, and we're waiting for this. The United Nations told Iraq, hey, you have till this day to get out. And they told Iraq, if you don't get out of Kuwait, then we will invade Kuwait and get you out of Kuwait. So what do you think we were doing in the desert waiting for that date to come? Well, sure, hiding from the elements and hiding from the big old spiders that were there and the scorpions and the camels. That camel that I just saw there, he bit me. Yeah, he bit me. We were feeding him candy and he wanted more candy. Okay, and so I put my hand out with something and he's going, I don't think he did it to be mean. He was just hungry. Okay. Okay. No, it wasn't. Yes, sir. I'm sorry? Okay. If you have any questions, I'll get to them in a second. But, so anyways, Iraq didn't get out. The conflict rose to the point where there was a physical war. And fortunately, the United Nations forces were successful in getting Iraq out. But, was the conflict over? Okay. You can move somebody, but you really can't change their mind or their heart. Right now, we are still at a war with Iraq. It just went further in. It went to a different location and stuff. So what I want to kind of talk to you guys about now is you're learning how to come up with a peaceful solution to conflicts. Okay? So let's talk about this conflict here in Korea. Does anybody know what the conflict is? Anybody know how this started, real briefly? Yes, sir. A little louder so everybody can hear you. Hold on. World War? Okay. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. All right. So, all good answers. But really, this war started with an idea. How many of you have had ideas? How many of you, do your teachers love it when you guys have ideas? Yes, because you're learning. You're being inquirers and thinkers. I got an idea. But this war started with an idea. And it was one idea that two sides couldn't agree on. So instead of problem solving or being open-minded or being thinkers and caring and listening to somebody else's thought, they went their own ways. And because they went their own ways, they had bad feelings towards each other, and it ended up in war. And it is still going on now, right? Not as bad as it was from 1950 to 1953, but it's still, and it all goes with an idea. So what can we learn from this? You guys are learning, you've got a conflict. What are some possible peaceful solutions to these conflicts? Hold on a second, guys. So what would you do if I opened the door and brought in President Lee and Kim Jong-il? What would you do? Ask for their autographs? Take pictures for Facebook? Okay?
We're too young for Facebook.
What's that?
We're too young for
Too
Facebook.
young for Facebook? Oh, sorry. I got middle school students now. Okay?
Some people.
All right, hold on. Sorry. It's like,
Boys.
that's between you and your parents. Okay? So if you have, this is what I want you to think. All right? Kim Jong-il and President Lee are here. And they just greeted you, students. And they asked you one question. Don't answer this question. I want you to think about it or talk with your neighbor or write it down on a piece of paper. If they ask you, 5th grade class of GSIS International School, how could we end this conflict? What would you tell them? Give us some ideas of how to end the conflict here in Korea. What would you tell them? Think about it. Discuss it with your neighbor. Write down some notes. Brainstorm. I'll give you about 2 minutes, and then we'll see some answers. Is this okay? What's that? We're gonna play though. It was the conflict between capitalism and communism. Democracy and communism. It's much more than that. You'll learn a lot more in high school, but that was kind of the basis of it. Remember, they want your help to solve this conflict. What would you tell them? Question? Okay. So, all right, Kim Jong-il, President Lee walk in, and they say they greet you. They say hello, and they said, "Hey, we need help. This conflict's been going on for 60 years, longer than any of us, maybe Mr. Schumacher, longer than any of us have been alive." Okay, and they said, "We're tired. We have families that have been separated. People in North Korea are starving to death. They're freezing to death. We need to solve this conflict. Boys and girls, help us. What can we do to put an end to this conflict?" Okay? All right. Let's do this in an orderly fashion. If you have something to say, raise your hand. Those of you that are listening, please be caring and respectful, and don't laugh at anybody else's suggestion. Okay? All right. Daniel? Let them vote. Ah, can I write these things down?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Schumacher is going to write down these answers. We're going to compile an answer, a list, and see what we come up with. He's saying, let all the people of North Korea and South Korea vote. Okay, what is your name, Mike? John. John, go ahead.
You could tell them the benefits of having North Korea and South Korea together.
The benefits, more parking space. I'll take that one because my car gets dinged up daily. I park far away from people, and I come in, there's a new dink every day. Somebody opens the door and hits mine. So the benefits of having more space and parking, I want that one. Okay, what's your name? Lewis. Talk about it and why you started it. How many of you have gotten into an argument with your classmate and one of your teachers said, hey, calm down, let's talk about it? Exactly. And after you breathe and talk about it, don't you feel better? Okay. Talk about it. All right. Sure. A little louder, please.
One is like help each other and everything and make a contract, never to hurt or damage each country.
A contract, never to hurt or damage each country. Okay.
And the second is like
Stop doing illegal things to each other. Okay. Okay. All right, ladies, you have anything back there? Y'all writing a bunch of stuff, and I tell you, let's get some ideas back there. How about Mission? What's your name, Mission? Yes. Sorry, it's got Mission on your shirt. What's your name? Amelia. Amelia, what would you say to the presidents? Okay.
And then vote which president.
Lock him in jail, and then we vote. Do we let him out of jail, or we just leave him there? Just leave them there. We vote 2 new guys in, okay? Vote, okay. A couple more. What is your name? Sarah? We can make them talk. We can ask them to be Facebook friends, and they can say, "Hey Kim, what's up?" LOL. Nothing, President Lee. Okay. Make them communicate. Well, all right. Next to Sarah in the glasses on the right. What is your name? I'm sorry? Olana? Elena? Sorry. I listen to a lot of rock music. I'm deaf. You gotta speak loud. What would you say?
Well, maybe they can, like, maybe the North Korea
Okay.
people explain why they started the war.
Okay.
What was wrong with what didn't they get?
So that is a very good point, because do you think the reasons why this conflict is going on are the same as they were 60 years ago? People stayed mad at each other for so long that when they finally talk, they forgot what they're mad about. Why don't they like you? I don't know. Why don't they like you? I don't know. That was so long ago. So then why are we doing this? That's silly. Okay? A couple more. Yes, sir. What's your name? Matthew.
Why don't we put them in like a law? Why don't we put them inside of class and put them inside of groups and then make them stay there and nothing until they
Put them in a tough situation where they have to make a decision. Okay? Yes, what's your name? Sylvia. So you're saying that they should stay that way? She's saying stay 2 countries, but agree to help each other. Okay? All right. Sorry, I don't have time for everyone, but maybe you can share your answers with your teacher, because I want to move on. So just imagine there's other conflicts. I wanted to use that one because we can all relate to that one, because this is where we live. But there's other conflicts around the world too. There's other conflicts that don't necessarily have to do with war. Can you tell me what other things can cause conflicts? What other types of conflicts there are there besides war? Okay. Lack of resources can cause conflict. You know what resources are? Food, water, access to clean water, access to good vegetation. Okay, yes, ma'am. Very good. What was your name again? Kelly said, I don't know if you heard what Kelly said, another form of conflict is if a government makes a law, like, for instance, the example she used was, in America, only Christians are allowed to be in America. Then that means all the non-Christians are going to have conflict with that. Okay? But if a government makes that law, they have the right. We don't have to, like in the United States, they make laws to raise taxes. That's like saying, hey, Mr. Martinez, give us money, but now you have to give us more money. I'm going to have an issue with that because I want my money. Okay? So those are different examples of conflicts. But what you're learning here, I think, is a good thing. You're learning at a young age how to deal with conflict. Raise your hand if you're Korean. Okay, everybody who has their hand raised, chances are you're going to live your life out here in Korea. Right? Whether, good chance that you'll live your life out here in Korea. Those of us who are not Korean may live here a little bit longer, but eventually we're going to leave. You are the future of Korea. Remember what I was talking about. This conflict has been going on so long that the older generation, some of them are set in their ways and they really don't want to change. And that's okay. That's their choice. We have to respect that. But you, as the younger kids, what we're trying to teach you here at GSIS is a better way to live our life in peace. What would you do? What would the American kids and the Iraqi kids say if we were talking to them and we brought in bin Laden, who is the terror leader, and President Bush or President Obama and said, hey, we as the kids of the world, we want to give you some suggestions on how to end this conflict. You know how I'd end the conflict here in Korea? I would like for them to be one country, but I think that's going to take many years. But for now, this is what I would do. I would say, Kim Jong-il, President Lee, you can have guns, but no bullets. You can still have your borders, but no bombs. And you meet up on the border and you play kai-bai-bo. And the winner takes it all.
Wow.
Nobody dies. Right? But until I become president of the world, we're still going to have this conflict. Okay? If they want to throw stuff at each other, they can throw water balloons. Okay? At least while they're mad at each other, they're having fun. Oh, did you see that North Korean? I got him wet. Okay? Yeah. And if they're going to drive airplanes instead of dropping bombs, they can drop books so the North Korean kids can learn how to read. Right? You guys get to read, why can't they? Okay? Well, they read those too. Okay? Yes, ma'am, had a question? We'll make them waterproof. Okay? I know that might be kind of silly, but at least nobody gets hurt, nobody dies. This is what I want you to go away with. One, there are going to be conflicts. There's always a way out of conflicts. And we should really try to avoid choosing to deal with a conflict where somebody gets hurt, whether that's physically or emotionally. Okay? Words hurt. If I punch somebody in the eye, their eye is going to get big, I'm going to get fired, but that black eye is going to go away, right? But if I sit here and say you guys are stupid and worthless and you'll never amount to anything, you're going to remember those hurtful words for the rest of your life. So if you get into a conflict, listen to your teachers and what they're trying to teach you. Find a peaceful solution way out, because in the end, that makes everybody happier and better. Okay? I don't know if I answered all the questions. I don't know if I met the objective here, but Unfortunately, a peaceful solution to everything, governments do think we need a military. You know, there are some people in my country that believe in order to keep the peace in America free, we need an enemy and we need wars. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I have been involved in a war. I have been involved in situations that were scary. And I'll tell you right now, I am 100% against any war. Okay? That's just my opinion. Yes, sir. It was in we got there December 25th of 1990, and it was over by the end of 91. I was only there for 6 months. Any other questions? I told you I'd give you some question time. Yes, sir. I knew that question was coming. Did I ever have to shoot anyone? And the next question is going to be what? Did I kill anyone? I'll tell you right now, I won't answer that question. Okay? You're going to come across people in your life who have been in combat situations. Some of your grandparents may have fought in the Korean War or wars in your own home countries. If they're willing to talk about it, that's fine, but try not to ask them that question, because you got to understand, to do that is not a good thing. Okay? So I'm sorry, I won't answer that question. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. Where did they shoot me? I was in shock. Let's get away from shooting and bombing. Well, we'll bring water balloons. Yes, ma'am. No, not that I can remember. It would have been colder. It would have been frozen. It would have been like a water rock. We did come across some Muslim kids, some kids in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and guess what's the one thing? They didn't know any English except for 2 words. Help me? No. Well, the little kids. You got to imagine. We're walking through the desert. We have helmets. We have gas masks. We have these big suits. We had guns and grenades and everything. And the little kids didn't care how mean we looked. They just came up to us and they wanted 2 things. They wanted candy and they wanted lights. Because in the military, we have what's called a chem light. You ever seen it? It's like a bracelet or a necklace. You break it, it glows. You ever seen those? Well, in the military, we had thousands of those because we needed them for, at night we could see, or if there was a helicopter that needed to land, we could mark out an area at night with these lights. Well, somewhere the troops before us gave these kids in the village those lights. Well, they only last for like 6 hours. Well, we got there days after the first people did, and they brought up this little light and said, light, candy, light. So I didn't have any candy, so we gave them a bunch of lights. So they are curious kids just like you. And remember this, and this is the very last thing I'll say, because you guys got to go, is this. In every conflict, there is innocent people involved. Always keep them in mind in your prayers, okay? There's little kids in North Korea who have no idea, or who could care less about this conflict. They just want to play. There's little kids in Afghanistan who could care less about the fundamental ideas of the Muslim tribes there. They just want to live their life, be safe, and play soccer. Okay? Always remember the innocent people caught in the middle of conflicts. And if you can, say a prayer for them. Okay? Thank you for having me. And I might see some of you next year. I'm not as nice.